Imagine finding out your birthday gift early and absolutely hating it, not because it's cheap or thoughtless, but because it's tied to years of pain, arguments, and regret. I'm turning 45 soon, and what my husband bought me left me stunned, not in a good way. Why would he bring that car back into our lives? Let me tell you the whole story. It was a quiet Thursday afternoon, the kind of ordinary day where the air hangs still, and your mind drifts between to-do lists and half-finished memories. I was digging through the garage, hunting for a spare phone charger, something I must have misplaced after our last road trip to see my sister in Phoenix. The garage was cluttered, as usual, filled with boxes of our daughter's old toys, Christmas decorations we never used, and tools my husband swore he'd organize one day. And that's when I saw it. A large shape under a thick, dusty tarp. At first, I thought it was just more junk, maybe an old shelf or something my husband had picked up at a yard sale and forgotten to mention. But the shape, it looked familiar. Strangely familiar. I walked closer, brushing aside a strand of cobweb from my hair. My stomach tightened. Something inside me knew before I even touched the tarp. I pulled it back slowly. And there it was. A vintage BMW 2-seater. Sleek. Black. Shiny. Even in the dim garage light, I stared at it. Frozen. My hand still clutching the edge of the tarp like I might drop it, and this whole moment would vanish. But it didn't. My heart dropped into my stomach. It felt like the wind had been knocked out of me. This wasn't just any car. It was the car. I hadn't seen it in nearly 20 years, but I'd know it anywhere. The curved body, the old-school dashboard, the tiny scratch on the front bumper that no one else ever noticed but used to drive my husband crazy. This was the car from our past. Our chaotic, painful, unresolved past. The same car my husband once obsessed over like it was a part of his soul. The car that nearly tore us apart. My legs started to tremble slightly, the way they do when adrenaline rushes through your body too fast. I stepped back and sat down on an old stool by the wall. My hands were cold, even though it was warm that afternoon. I couldn't believe it, after all these years, after everything we'd been through. He brought this car back? I wasn't just surprised. I was hurt. Deeply. I didn't need to ask what it was doing there. It was obvious. My birthday was coming up in a couple weeks. He had been acting strange lately, making quiet phone calls in the backyard, disappearing for a few hours on weekends, telling me not to peek at the garage. I had thought he was planning a surprise party, or maybe booking a weekend getaway for the two of us. But this was his big gift. And not just a gift. He bought it for me. It was laughable. Except it wasn't funny at all. Suddenly, the memories came flooding back, like an old wound being ripped open. The late-night hospital call after he crashed that car on a winding mountain road. The hours I sat in the waiting room praying he'd be okay, while resenting him for driving recklessly again. The financial strain, repair bills, insurance hikes, towing costs, even theft investigations. 3 times that car was stolen. 3. Each time, more stress, more lost money, more fights between us. And worst of all, the final chapter. When our daughter was born, I begged him to sell the car. I needed him to grow up, to let go of his fantasy life and focus on the family we were building. He finally agreed. But even that was a disaster. The man who bought it paid only half up front and vanished. The rest of the money never came. We had to get lawyers involved, more stress, more time, more emotional damage. That car was like a curse. We never talked about it again. We didn't need to. It was over, or so I thought. And now, here it was, back in my garage. A ghost from the past, gift wrapped in metal and wax polish. I sat there, frozen, running my fingers along my jeans, trying to slow my breathing. What was he thinking? Did he really believe this would make me happy? Did he remember anything about how that car made me feel? Worse, did he care? Maybe in his mind this was a romantic gesture. Maybe he saw it as a way to relive the good times, back when we were younger, wilder, freer. But for me, this wasn't nostalgia. This was trauma wrapped in a shiny bow, and the fact that he didn't think to ask me, to check in, to consider my feelings after all these years. That stung even more than the car itself. I could already imagine his face when he showed it to me. Proud, hopeful, maybe a little smug. "Look what I got you, babe," he'd say, waiting for me to squeal in delight, like I was on one of those surprise makeover shows. And I'd have to stand there, pretending I was excited, pretending I wasn't spiraling inside. But I couldn't do that. Not again. Not this time. I wiped my hands on my jeans, stood up slowly, and stared at the car again. It looked so harmless now. Just a machine. 4 wheels and a frame. But it carried 20 years of weight, and not the good kind. I felt something shift inside me. A realization. This wasn't about the car. This was about being heard, about being seen, about knowing that after all these years, he still didn't understand me, still didn't really listen. This wasn't a gift for me. This was a gift for him, disguised as something meaningful. And that broke my heart more than anything else. So what do I do now? Do I smile and thank him, keep the peace, and swallow the bitter taste in my mouth? Or do I speak up, risk hurting him, and possibly start a storm I'm not ready to weather? The truth is, I don't know. But what I do know is this. I'm not 25 anymore. I'm about to be 45. I've lived, I've loved, I've sacrificed, and I've earned the right to say what I feel. Maybe it's time I did just that. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed next to my husband, who was snoring softly, blissfully unaware of the storm unraveling inside me. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that car. That damned car. It wasn't just about 4 wheels and a memory. It was a symbol of the times I felt unheard, unseen, and sidelined in my own life. And now, it was quietly waiting in our garage, like a wrapped-up secret, ticking like a time bomb. The next morning, I tried to act normal. I brewed coffee, scrambled eggs, even kissed him on the cheek. But inside, my mind was spinning. I watched him from across the table, sipping his coffee with a faint smile, and I wondered, how could he not know this would hurt me? Around lunchtime, I couldn't take it anymore. "Hey," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "What's under the tarp in the garage?" He looked up slowly. He said, smiling. "So, you found it." There it was. The pride, the twinkle in his eye. I suddenly felt nauseous. "I wanted it to be a surprise," he continued. "It's your birthday in a few weeks, and I thought, well, I tracked down the old girl. The exact one. Can you believe that? Same VIN number and everything." I forced a tight smile. "Yeah, I saw." He didn't seem to notice the iciness in my tone. "I had to jump through some hoops to get her back," he said, sounding like a kid with a new toy. "She was in Oregon, can you believe it? It took a couple of months to coordinate shipping. But I did it, for you." "For me?" My chest tightened. "Why would you think I'd want that car?" I finally asked, my voice sharper than I intended. He blinked. "What do you mean?" I set my coffee mug down, gently, but firmly. "That car, it brought so much stress into our lives. You remember the accident, the hospital bills, the thefts, the lawsuit. We lost money. We fought. I hated that time in our lives." His smile faded. "But that was years ago. I thought maybe now, with distance, you'd see it differently." "I haven't," I said quietly. "I still associate it with pain, with you being reckless, with me carrying the weight of fixing everything while you obsessed over a car. That's not a happy memory for me. That's not the kind of gift I want." There was a long pause. He looked down at his hands, as if they were suddenly foreign to him. I thought I was doing something special," he said, more to himself than to me. "I thought it would remind us of when we were young." "We weren't happy back then," I replied. "We were barely surviving. You were chasing dreams, and I was cleaning up after them. I needed you to let go of that phase, not bring it back." He rubbed his temple, visibly frustrated. "I didn't mean to hurt you. I thought you'd see it as a sweet gesture, something nostalgic." "That's the problem," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "You thought. You decided. But you didn't ask." That hit him. I saw it in his eyes. The conversation drifted into silence. A thick, heavy silence. The kind that doesn't just fill a room. It fills a marriage. The days that followed were tense. He kept his distance. I kept mine. The car sat untouched in the garage, like a monument to everything we weren't saying. At night, we barely spoke. During the day, we tiptoed around each other. The energy between us shifted. Not explosive, just distant. Like we were living in two different emotional time zones. But then something happened. Our daughter came to visit for the weekend. She's 21 now, smart and sharp as a tack. She picked up on the tension immediately. "You guys okay?" she asked me while helping me prep dinner. I hesitated. Then I told her the truth. Well, most of it. I told her about the car, the history, and how I felt blindsided. She listened carefully, nodding, never judging. After a moment, she said something that struck me. "You know, maybe Dad didn't buy the car for you. Maybe he bought it for who you were back then. Or maybe for who he was. Maybe he misses that version of himself." I paused, the knife in my hand still slicing tomatoes. That hadn't crossed my mind. Not fully. Was this really about me? Or was this a man clinging to his fading youth? His glory days? Trying to reignite a sense of identity he lost to mortgages and responsibilities? Later that evening, I watched him from the kitchen window. He was in the garage, wiping down the BMW, with a soft cloth, gently tracing the curves like it was something sacred. Not once did he look up. He wasn't smiling. He looked wistful, almost lonely. And that's when it clicked. This wasn't about the car. This was about time, about age, about a man turning gray at the temples and wondering if the best parts of him were behind him. He didn't buy the BMW because he thought I needed it. He bought it because he needed it, because he wanted a piece of himself back. The version that was wild, bold, and full of reckless hope. I realized something else, too. He hadn't ignored my feelings intentionally. He just couldn't see past his own longing. It didn't excuse the oversight, but it explained it. And sometimes, understanding softens anger more than any apology can. That night, I sat down next to him in the garage. "I've been thinking," I said. "I still don't want the car, but I think I understand why you do." He looked at me, his eyes weary. "I didn't mean to hurt you." "I know," I said. "I think maybe you just missed that part of life, where things felt exciting. When we were younger, dumber, and everything felt possible." He chuckled, a little sad. "Yeah, I guess I do." We sat there quietly, looking at the car. It no longer felt threatening, just nostalgic, complicated, human. "I'm not 25 anymore," I said. "And neither are you. But maybe that's okay. Maybe we don't need to go back. Maybe we just need to figure out what feels exciting now." He nodded. "So, what do I do with the car?" I smiled. "Keep it, if it brings you joy. Just don't pretend it was for me. Let's be honest about that." He reached over, took my hand. "Deal." And in that moment, something shifted again. But this time in a good way. We weren't erasing the past. We were making peace with it. The morning after our talk in the garage, something felt lighter. It wasn't as if all the tension had disappeared. The car still sat in its spot, and the emotions it stirred didn't vanish overnight. But acknowledging the truth had softened the silence between us. For the first time in weeks, we shared a real breakfast together. No eggshell conversations, no forced small talk. Just coffee, toast, and the gentle clink of two people trying again. Later that day, I went for a walk through the neighborhood. It was warm for mid-April, and the dogwood trees were just beginning to bloom. I thought about everything that had happened, and for the first time I stopped seeing the car as a threat. Instead, I started thinking about what it represented. Not just for my husband, but maybe even for me. Because the truth was, he wasn't the only one feeling stuck between versions of ourselves. 45. It's not an easy age to describe. You're not young anymore, but you're not old either. You still remember how your body felt 10 years ago. Lighter, quicker, easier. But now your knees pop when you get up, and you squint at menus in dim restaurants. And emotionally, it's a strange tug of war between where you thought you'd be and where you actually are. Walking that sidewalk under the wide blue sky, I realized I'd been carrying my own ghosts. No, I didn't miss that car. But I did miss the version of myself that could still be surprised. The version who danced barefoot in the kitchen at midnight, who made spontaneous weekend plans, who didn't always have a grocery list and a calendar full of responsibilities, and maybe, just maybe, that's what this birthday was really bringing up for both of us. Not just age, but identity, change, loss. And maybe the craving for a second chance at something, even if we weren't sure what. That night, after dinner, I asked him to go for a drive. He looked at me, surprised. In the BMW? I nodded. Yeah, why not? His face lit up. It wasn't a smug grin or a triumphant smile. It was softer than that. Like he was quietly grateful. Like maybe he didn't expect me to ever say those words. We walked into the garage together. He opened the passenger door for me, and I slid in. The leather seats were familiar, but stiffer than I remembered. The car smelled like polished wood, aged vinyl, and a little bit of memory. He started the engine, and it roared to life with that low, throaty hum I used to hate. This time, I didn't flinch. I let the sound fill the space. We backed out slowly and rolled through the neighborhood like ghosts from another decade. At first, we didn't talk much. He drove, and I watched the houses go by. Some new, some still the same from when we first moved here. Then, we reached the edge of town and turned onto an old country road we hadn't driven together in years. He glanced over at me. You okay? I nodded. Yeah, I'm remembering things. He smiled gently. Good things or bad things? Both, I said honestly, but I think I'm starting to understand that maybe it's okay to hold both at the same time. We drove in silence for a while after that, and honestly, it was peaceful. The sun was setting behind the trees, casting long shadows across the pavement. We passed open fields, rusted barns, and stretches of nothingness that felt oddly comforting. Out here, there was no noise, no pressure, just road, wind, and the hum of two people rediscovering something they thought they'd lost. Eventually, we pulled into the overlook where he used to take me in the early days. It hadn't changed much, just a gravel loop with a view of the valley, and a single wooden bench near the edge. We sat on the hood of the car, legs dangling, arms brushing lightly as the evening breeze rolled in. He broke the silence first. I think I've been afraid, he said, not looking at me. Afraid of getting older, of becoming boring, of waking up one day and realizing I've lost everything that made me me. I let his words settle between us. I get that, I replied. I think I've been afraid too. Afraid that we've been growing in different directions, that I'm turning into someone you can't connect with anymore, that maybe you needed this car to remember who you were, because maybe I haven't been reminding you. He turned to face me. That's not your job. It's mine. I don't know. Buying this car, it felt like taking back a piece of myself. But now I see it also brought back a lot for you too. We sat there for a long time. No grand declarations. No dramatic revelations. Just a shared understanding that maybe what we needed wasn't to go back, but to reconnect. Here and now. After a while, I leaned my head on his shoulder. You know, I said, maybe we both needed this wake-up call. Maybe this wasn't about the car at all. Maybe it was about us needing to remember that we're allowed to want things, that we're allowed to feel stuck sometimes, that we can still want joy, surprise, reckless little moments, even at 45. He chuckled softly. I don't know if I've got any reckless left in me. Oh, I bet you do, I said, smiling. We just have to be smarter about it now. We drove home under a sky full of stars, and something in me felt different. Not fixed. Not finished. Just freer. The resentment I'd been holding on to began to fade. The past still mattered, yes, but it didn't have to dictate everything about our future. Back in the garage, we turned the engine off, and the quiet felt gentle this time, not heavy. "I still don't want the car," I said, teasing. He laughed. "Yeah, I figured. Maybe I'll register it under my name then." "Deal," I said. "But you have to take me for drives like that more often." "You got it." We closed the garage together, and I slipped my hand into his as we walked inside, and for the first time in a long while, I didn't feel like we were drifting apart. I felt like we were steering, maybe slowly, maybe imperfectly, but steering toward each other again. For a few days after that drive, it felt like something had shifted between us, for the better. There was a softness in our interactions again, a lightness. He started making small jokes like he used to, and I caught myself smiling at them more often than not. We had dinner together without television. We even danced once in the kitchen to a Marvin Gaye song that came on the radio while we were washing dishes. But real change, deep change, is never that easy, not when it's built on years of habits, resentment, and quiet compromises that never got spoken aloud. And while the moment in the garage, the drive, the conversation, they had cracked something open between us, it didn't mean we'd fully healed. We had simply peeled back a layer, and underneath it, the truth still waited. The next conflict started small, like most things that blow up do. It was a Saturday morning. He'd gone out to run errands, and I was cleaning out the living room closet. I came across an old storage bin marked Dad's stuff. Our daughter must have packed it up during her last move. I almost pushed it aside, but something made me sit down and open it. Inside were photo albums, newspaper clippings, and a leather-bound notebook filled with sketches and notes. But then I found something else. Tucked at the bottom of the bin was a recent car insurance policy. My name was on it, for the BMW. My throat tightened. I read the document again to make sure. He had insured the car under my name, not his, as if he still wanted it to be my birthday gift, as if all our conversations, all that honesty, all the clarity we had reached, meant nothing. I sat there on the floor, staring at the paper in my hand, my heart pounding with a mix of anger and disbelief. Why would he do this? Why still pretend? When he came home that afternoon, I didn't wait. "I found the insurance policy," I said, standing in the hallway before he even took off his shoes. He paused, keys still in hand. "What?" "For the BMW. You put it under my name." He frowned. "Yeah, I thought it would be easier. Lower premiums under your record. Just paperwork, really." I stared at him, searching for any sign of awareness. "You told me you understood. That the car wasn't for me. That it wasn't my gift. That it was about you." He shifted, clearly uncomfortable. "It was. I mean, it is. But I thought, after the drive, after everything, maybe you were okay with it now. Maybe you even liked it a little." "You still don't get it," I said, the anger rising now. "You keep turning this into something for me, because you don't want to face the fact that you bought that car for yourself, out of fear, nostalgia, ego, whatever it is. But you keep dragging me into it." He set the keys down slowly. "It's not that black and white, isn't it?" I challenged. "You used my name. You didn't even ask. You just assumed, again." He opened his mouth, then closed it, then sighed. "Okay, you're right. I didn't think it through. I guess I wanted to believe we were moving forward, that maybe the car didn't have to be a wound anymore." "But it still is," I said, softer now. "Maybe not a bleeding one, but it's a scar, and every time you act like it's not, it stings all over again." We stood there in silence, the air between us thick, waited. I didn't want to fight. I didn't want to throw everything we'd rebuilt into the fire, but I also couldn't keep pretending this wasn't still hurting me. "I think you're chasing something that doesn't exist anymore," I said, "and I'm afraid that if you keep chasing it, you'll miss what's right in front of you, us." He sat down on the arm of the couch, rubbing his face. He looked older suddenly, like the years had all arrived at once and taken a seat on his shoulders. "I don't know who I am without that part of me," he finally said. "That guy who loved cars, who felt free behind the wheel, who had dreams bigger than this house. Sometimes I feel like I've turned into a utility, a paycheck, a lawnmower." I softened. "I know," I whispered. "I feel that way too sometimes, like a scheduler, a cleaner, a mediator, but that's not because of the car, or the lack of one. That's because we stopped showing each other the things that made us feel alive. We let routine take over. That's not just on you, that's on both of us." He looked up at me. "So what do we do?" "We stop pretending we're okay when we're not. We start being honest. Not just once, not just during a drive, but consistently. And maybe we find new things to chase, together, things that belong to both of us now." He nodded slowly, but I could tell he wasn't there yet. Not fully. And maybe I wasn't either, but that moment, raw, unfiltered, uncomfortable, was real. And that, at least, was something to hold on to. Later that night, I couldn't sleep again. But this time it wasn't because I was angry. It was because I was thinking about how easy it is to drift in a marriage. Not because of a single act, but because of all the small moments where you choose silence over truth, where you choose ease over honesty, where you avoid a conversation one day, and that silence grows roots. The car wasn't the problem. It was just the loudest symbol of all the things we hadn't said. So the next morning, I wrote him a letter. Not a dramatic letter, not an ultimatum. Just a letter of clarity. I told him I loved him, that I respected his longing for something more, that I wanted us to rediscover joy together, but that I couldn't be part of a story that required me to erase my truth. I left the letter on his pillow and went out for a walk. When I came back, he was in the garage. But this time, he wasn't polishing the car. He had a box open, and inside it were tools, manuals, and old parts. He was sorting through them, labeling things. There was a donate pile, a keep pile, and a third one I hadn't seen before. Let go. He looked up as I stepped in. "I read your letter." I nodded. He held up a small keychain. It was from our first trip to the mountains together, a cheap plastic charm shaped like a pine tree. "I found this in the glove compartment," he said. "Forgot it was in there. Made me think about all the other things we've been storing away." He placed it in the let go pile. Then he looked at me. "I think I'm ready to stop running backwards." And for the first time since this whole ordeal began, I believed him. We didn't fix everything in one conversation. That's not how life works, especially when the hurt has roots. But something changed that morning. Standing in the garage, watching my husband sort through pieces of our shared past. It wasn't the sight of the car, or even the piles he'd labeled keep and let go. It was the quiet, thoughtful way he handled each item, as if he finally understood that this wasn't about metal and wheels. It was about memories, meaning, and movement. Forward movement. That evening, he asked me to sit with him. Not in the garage, not at the dinner table, but in the living room, where the light from the window hit just right, and where we hadn't sat for a real talk in far too long. "I want to tell you something," he said, clearing his throat. I nodded, waiting. "When I bought that car," he began, "I wasn't just trying to relive the past. I think I was scared. Scared that we were getting older, and things were getting quieter. I missed feeling something. I missed us. The fire, the risk, even the messiness." He paused and looked down at his hands. They weren't the same hands I held at 25. They were weathered now, real, lived in. I understood. "I thought maybe," he continued, "if I brought back the car, it would bring back the people we used to be. But I didn't realize I was asking you to relive pain you never wanted to revisit." I reached for his hand. "Thank you for saying that." We sat for a moment, just breathing together. Then I told him something I hadn't fully admitted to myself until that very moment. I've been afraid too, I said. Not of aging, but of us drifting into routines so deep we forget how to climb out. I miss us too. But I don't want to go backward to find us. I want to find a new way forward. He smiled gently. What does that look like? The truth was, I wasn't sure. But for the first time I wanted to figure it out. With him, and that was the beginning. Over the next few weeks, we started doing things differently. Small things, at first. We walked together after dinner. We left our phones in the other room during meals. We asked each other more questions. Not about bills or errands, but about dreams. About what still made us curious. About what scared us now. About what we still wanted to become. The car? It sat in the garage quietly for a while. No longer the center of anything. Just a car. He tinkered with it occasionally, but the obsession was gone. The pressure to make it a symbol of anything had faded. Eventually, we donated it to a local vocational school, where students were learning to become mechanics. My husband came up with the idea himself. Let someone else give it new life, he said. I smiled. It felt poetic in a way, like we were handing over the past, not to forget it, but to let it evolve into something useful, something with purpose. Letting go isn't about erasing. It's about releasing the weight of meaning you no longer need to carry. And in doing so, we created space to be new people, in an older love. One weekend, we went away to a cabin in the woods, just the two of us. No kids, no chores, no lists. We brought books, made pancakes from scratch, talked for hours by the fire. It was quiet and deep and honest. He told me stories he'd never shared before, about fears he'd had as a young dad, about the pressure he'd felt to always look like he had everything under control. I told him about the loneliness I sometimes felt in the early years of our marriage, how hard it was to carry both the emotions and the logistics. We cried, we laughed, we held each other longer than we had in years. It didn't erase the years of miscommunication, or the wounds that had formed from silence, but it wrapped them in something soft. Forgiveness, intention, presence. And it reminded me that marriage isn't about staying in love with the same version of a person. It's about choosing to fall in love with who they become, again and again, and letting them do the same for you. Looking back, the car wasn't a mistake. It was a mirror. It showed us what we were avoiding, what we were longing for, and how easily two people can start living parallel lives without realizing it. And it gave us the wake-up call we needed. Sometimes, healing doesn't come wrapped in roses and candlelight. Sometimes, it comes in the shape of something you swore you'd never let back into your life. A trigger, a symbol, a car. And sometimes, it leads to something better. Not a perfect marriage, but a conscious one. As I stand at the threshold of 45, I don't feel the panic I thought I would. I feel curious. I feel rooted. I feel like I know myself and him better than I did at 25. And that is something worth celebrating, not with flashy gifts or a blast from the past, but with quiet mornings, shared glances, hard conversations, and soft landings. That's what love looks like now. And I'm okay with that. No, I'm more than okay. I'm grateful.